So, today the San Jose Sharks will play the Vegas Golden Knights at 7 p.m. This video is being uploaded at about 12, so there's some time for people to come over here, check the story, and go over what exactly it is we're talking about here. But the previous Sharks game wasn't really all too great. The Sharks ended up losing a doubleheader to the Minnesota Wild on Friday, April 16th, and Saturday, April 17th. The Friday game was okay, 3-2, not terrible, but it is a loss still. And for a Sharks team that was barely close to edging themselves into the playoffs, yeah, it's certainly not the kind of result you want, even more so on Saturday where they lost 5-2 to that Minnesota Wild team that is very indomitably holding on to that third place position. So, when we're talking about how exactly things went on that Saturday loss, 5-2, I wanted to go over some of the comments made by Bob Boughner, the head coach of the San Jose Sharks, after said 5-2 loss against the Minnesota Wild. Here's a post on The Athletic. I didn't realize you can actually make posts and have these available without actually having a subscription. I'm only doing this because I know not everybody has The Athletic, and because this is technically available for public consumption, we're going to screenshot this one and post this one on the video. Boughner sent a message to Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc during the game, putting both of these guys on the fourth line. And then after the game, he said this: "These two, they were both horrible in the first period. They didn't deserve to play in the top 6 or the top 9 for that matter. I just made the decision after the first period, if you're not ready to play, put both those guys on the same line and let them try to figure it out down there." Now, if you don't know what he's talking about, the Wild were up 3-1 at the end of the first period, Brent Burns with the only goal, and if you take a look at the actual game summary, the play-by-plays of how things went down in the time on ice reports for the San Jose Sharks, both Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc had themselves a pretty eventful first period, I would say. Timo Meier in the first played a total time on ice of 3 minutes and 53 seconds, and he had himself a goal against. Now, granted, the rest of the game had himself get significantly more minutes in the second and third periods, but there weren't any more goals on his end or on the Minnesota Wild's end anytime he was on the ice from that point afterwards. For Labanc, he consistently had more overall opportunities on the ice than Meier did. He actually had an assist at the end of the game with a few seconds left in the third period, so good for him. But overall, I'm just really intrigued by seeing the comments made from Boughner over here, talking about how both Meier and Labanc were so bad in the first period to the point that they just played on the fourth line the rest of the night. Now, I'll be honest here, I haven't really seen too many Sharks games this season. With the regional blackouts and the overall television rights going on over here in Vancouver, it's tough to watch West Coast games. And by West Coast, I mean West standings, I guess I should have said instead, West Division. Yeah, they don't usually show up here too much. So for the Sharks, a team that is not really all too hot right now in the West Division, they've won 4 out of their last 10 and they've lost 5 in a row, certainly isn't the primary focus of my attention span right now, but I just wanted to gauge the audience and ask a few questions here. What exactly is going on with these guys? Because if you take a look at that post made on The Athletic that has the quote dissecting Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc, you can see some of the comments. Some of the comments here say, "Oh, it's about time. Oh, Meier's been really bad. For Kevin Labanc, he's going 2 steps forward and 1.9 steps back." Those are some of the comments over here on the post. And I'm just kind of sitting here thinking, darn, what happened to these guys? I get that the Sharks aren't really all too great this year. I get that the Sharks probably expected themselves to be doing a lot better than they are or have been in the previous few years. But for Timo Meier and Kevin Labanc, it's really interesting to me how these guys are not some of the guys that are driving the ship and instead are being ridiculed to the point where now it's acceptable that they're on a fourth line. For Timo Meier, he's 24 years old, 6 feet tall, 216 pounds. I remember when he was one of the top picks in the 2015 NHL entry draft. He was always seen in my eyes as one of the better picks, even though that top 10 was absolutely stacked. I mean, McDavid, Eichel, Marner, Hanifin, Provorov, Werenski, Meier, and Rantanen, those were always like the guys, in my opinion, combined with the Brock Bessers and the Barzals and the Kyle Connors and the Shabbats. Yeah, crazy draft, right? And Timo Meier, as one of the top guys in that draft, outproducing many of the other players in this sphere, was always, to me, a guy who displayed such a good skill set that $6 million cap hit to his name was a steal. He's 24, and he's getting paid $6 million until 2023. And, I mean, he had 66 points back in 2018-19, and was barely under a point per game in the playoffs. This season, though, 25 points, 42 games, just over half a point a game. Certainly not the best in the world. I can totally see why there could be some disappointment with the decline in production here, especially since that 2018-19 season. But still, the Sharks have been the Sharks, so I don't really want to say it's completely fair to just look at this at face value and be like, okay, he's declining, he's bad. As for Kevin Labanc, I remember Kevin Labanc as one of those big underdog stories, you know? Labanc's a year older than Timo Meier. He's 25 years old, 5'11", 185 pounds, and he was a guy who, back when he was in the Barry Colt system in 2014-15, and the year Connor McDavid torched the OHL, and even the year after, where Connor McDavid was gone, and we had Dylan Strome and Alex DeBrincat doing things on their own in the OHL, Kevin Labanc was still the top guy in the league that year. 127 points. We had that crazy line with Matthew Tkachuk, Christian Dvorak, and Mitch Marner on the London Knights. But that Barry Colts duo of Kevin Labanc and Andrew Mangiapane was absolutely incredible. And as a result, I mean, Labanc was one of the top players in the entire OHL that season. I was always pulling for him super hard after that because he was a 6th-round pick 2 years beforehand, where he only had 35 points in 65 games played. And eventually, seeing what he did, where he had 56 points in 82 games played, he took himself that huge failure of a prove-it deal that ended up backfiring because the guy could have locked himself up for a good amount of money, but he said, no, I'll take $1 million by 1 year, let's go out there and win ourselves a Stanley Cup, and they ended up doing really terribly, the Sharks did. Labanc had 33 points in 70 games that year. Yeah, we kind of saw the decline coming because everybody kind of declined. This season, though, 25 points in 44 games played. Interestingly enough, the exact same amount of production as Timo Meier, except Meier has done it in 2 fewer games. Labanc and Meier are both 5th and 6th in the Sharks in points this season. So ultimately what I'm asking, I guess, is for any Sharks fans to go out there and talk to me in the comments, what has happened with these guys? Are these guys a problem, quote-unquote, to the point where putting them in the 4th line and leaving them there is a somewhat deserved outcome based off of how they've played? Is this really a case of them being bad and declining the way that Bugner is saying they have? Or is this just a reflection of the rest of the Sharks in general? And is this a situation where some of the guys that you wanted to step up and take that next step as younger guys leading this team into the next generation of Sharks hockey are just not doing that? What exactly is going on here with the Sharks? Because Meier and Labanc have always had such high reputations in my mind that it's really interesting, firstly, seeing them decline production-wise this way, and secondly, have their head coach call out how terrible they have been and be like, yeah, they sucked. They didn't deserve to play in the top 6 or the top 9. That's why I played them on the 4th line, because they were horrible. Those are some really, really strong words, if I do say so myself. So talk to me in the comments what you think about this video topic over here and exactly what your thoughts are on these 2 players. I'm looking forward to reading your comments. I hope you enjoyed. This was Schwarz99, and bye.